part of that is tubular processing. So we are here in glucose urea. So that is nothing but in urine glucose will appear. So when it will appear, as we discussed before that in this graph, whenever the glucose saturation it has reached transport maximum, then whatever the glucose comes it will be excreted. So in that case, like whenever there is increase in glucose in blood, uncontrolled diabetes mellitus. So like people who are having long term of diabetic mellitus, they have higher chances of excreting the urine in the urine. And here the filter load is glucose into GFR, so it's a normal formula. So here the filter load increases means the glucose concentration increases, but the GFR remains normal. Of course the GFR, the flow will be normal, but that is the renal plasma flow will be normal, but only the glucose concentration in it will be very high. So when the glucose concentration is very high, PCT, proximal convoluted tubule cells, find it difficult to transport. Even though they try to transport 100% of glucose, they reach the saturation point, transport maximum, so that they can't transport further glucose, can't reabsorb further glucose, so that glucose appears in the urine. And even in pregnancy, so this is a physiological. This uncontrolled diabetes mellitus is a pathological state, but pregnancy is a physiological state where the glomerular filtration rate usually increases and the filter load increases. Here actually the glucose range is normal, but the filtration GFR is increased. So as GFR is increased, of course you can understand this process. Like if something is flowing very fast, then it is very hard. For example, you are fishing, so if the flow of river is very fast, then it's hard to fish, but if somewhat slow flow, then you can easily fish. So same like here in pregnancy, actually the GFR is increasing a lot. So as the GFR is increasing, it's very hard for our PCT cells to cope up this speed and reabsorb this glucose from it or any other things. So because of this, the glucose may appear in urea in the case of pregnancy, urine in the case of pregnancy, because the flow is very fast. And next, another reason is due to reduced threshold renal flow. So actually the filter load is normal, the glucose is also normal, and even GFR is normal. So what is the problem? But glucose urea occurs, less transport is, here the problem is less transport is in the PCT. So if the proximal convoluted tubule have less transport system, then even though everything is normal, but no transporters, so glucose will appear in urine. So remember, these are the three cases. Two are pathological cases and one is a physiological stage. The two pathological stages are, one is diabetes increase in diabetes mellitus, and one more is a less transporters in PCD membrane. And the third one, which is a normal physiological state, is a pregnancy. Now let us see the para-aminohippuric acid, PAH, which is example of secreted substance. Actually this is used to measure the GFR. How we will use it, let us see. Actually it is a plasma bound protein, means it is bound with our plasma protein 90%, and only 10% is available as free. So it is exogenous substance, not produced in our body, it's outside subject. It is injected intravenously. So 20% is filtered, 80% is traveling to the efferent peritubular, and it is secreted into the cell of PCT and finally into the lumen of the tubule. So actually it has more secretion from the peritubular capillaries into the PCT cells. So finally everything is excreted in the urine, that is 20% is filtered and 80% is secreted. So you can see the filtration of this para-aminohippuric acid is very low, but its secretion is very high. 80% is secreted from the peritubular capillaries into the PCT cells. So that's why we took it as an example of secretion. So PAH on x-axis, filter load, second load excreted on y-axis. So filtered curve and a secretion curve travel linearly. Later secretion curve forms play and levels off. So what they mean, first they are moving linearly, means as the filtration is increasing, the secretion is also increasing. But later they play off because the secretion later decreases. So the excretion curve also move linearly and move parallel with the filter law. Of course, how much is secreted, that will be excreted out. Now let us see the net effects of reabsorption and secretion. So inert substances, tubules won't reabsorb or secrete their filtered load, and excretory load is equal. So excretory load is equal to S into urine flow rate. There is no reabsorption. For example, you take inulin creatine. Actually what they mean to say here is, in the case of inulin and creatine, actually there is no either reabsorption or either secretion. Means whatever is filtered, that only gets in the urine. An example is 2 is the substances which are reabsorbed. So the net reabsorption is observed and the filtered load is very high when compared with excretory load, because however a lot of fluid is filtered but a lot of it reabsorbed, means the excretion will be of course low. Example, you can take glucose 100% it is absorbed, amino acid 100% absorbed, sodium chloride 65% absorbed. Next, coming to example 3, the substances which are filtered and secreted. So here you can see these are having both filtration and secretion. So the net secretion is observed and the excretory load is very high here because it is having even secretion along with the filtration load. So here we can take PaH like an example because it is 80% secreted from our PCT, and organic acids and bases also have same secretion like PaH, and also potassium is secreted. In the case of aldosterone, when aldosterones get activated, they act upon our collecting tubule at last, and especially on the principal cell of the collecting tubule, so that lot of potassium is getting into the urine, that is called Kelly urea. Now let us see the reabsorption and secretion of different parts of nephron. So first let us start with PCT. Already we discussed a lot about PCT. So substances are secreted by the help of presence of protein in basal membrane to the lumen of renal tubule. Example, organic acid, bases, PAH. Bile salts are secreted naturally by PCT, oxalates, urates, catecholamines, which is a marker of yes, in a disease like catecholamines are very much increased. So BMI is increased in urine, that is mandelic acids. These are organic toxins, drugs, penicillins. So penicillins are blocked by proban acid, so that penicillin is present long term in the body. Actually, in previous days we used penicillin as a treatment, but penicillin, it used to have lot of excretion. So to prevent this excretion, that penicillin should stay long term in body, we used to give proban acid, which used to block this PCT cell secretion, so that penicillin can stay a lot in the body and work on the human body. Next, PCT cells reabsorb 65% of sodium, chlorine, water, filtered substances, and 100% glucose amino acids are reabsorbed. Phosphate rushing hormone is a parathyroid hormone, which mainly block the reabsorption of phosphates, means nothing but phosphates are excreted in urine. And parathyroid hormone also reabsorb the calcium from the DCT. Why it reabsorb the calcium from the DCT? So that it can store the calcium, increase the calcium in the blood, and also they block the reabsorption of phosphorus from the PCT, means phosphorus is also released into the urine. And angiotensin to amplify the reabsorption of sodium in PCT. So always angiotensin 2, everyone think it has its function only on efferent arteriole, but it also has its function on proximal convoluted tubule. It helps to reabsorb more sodium. And PCT can convert the inactive vitamin D into active vitamin D by hydroxylation at the first position. So now it becomes that by means of alpha 1 hydroxylase, right, enzyme, it converts 1 to 125 dihydroxycalciferol, right. So that is the active form of vitamin D, which is done by means of PCT. It gets activated here, it gets its first hydroxylation by alpha 1 hydroxylase. So these are all like very fast quick revision of all the features of PCT. Now let us see what happens in loop of Henle. Loop of Henle, osmolarity of body fluid is like 298 milliosmoles or 300. Osmolarity of glomerular filtrate is like 300. Even in the PCT it is same, because as I discussed before. So fluid in medullary interstitium is hyperosmotic. So here comes a difference. So coming to loop of Henle, in the loop of Henle, outside the loop of Henle there is lot of hyperosmolality because of lot of solutes there. So thin descending loop of Henle cells don't have brush border and striations, and also no mitochondria, and they are minimally absorptive when compared with PCT. So PCT have a lot of reabsorption better, whereas loop of Henle only have some extent of absorption. Under all physiological circumstances, PCT and descending loop of Henle are water impermeable, not permeable, it's water impermeable. PCT and descending loop of Henle, yeah, they're permeable. PCT and that is descending loop of Henle are permeable, whereas ascending loop of Henle, that is thick part of loop of Henle, and initial part of DCT are impermeable to water. So permeability of lateral DCT and collecting duct are dependent on ADH and permeability to water. So 20% of water is reabsorbed from descending thin loop of Henle. Solids from interstitium enter the tubule. The solutes which are present in the interstitium enter the tubule. So because of this Yeah, 20% water is reabsorbed from descending in loop of Henle. Solutes from interstitium enter the tubule. As going down in thin descending loop, osmolality increase from 300 to 1200 osmoles. So why they are increasing? Because of solutes are entering into the tubule. This is very important in the case of thin ascending, thin descending loop of Henle. So if I draw a diagram, it's better. So again, this is PCT. So here comes, now we are talking about this part. This is the thin ascending loop of Henle. So here actually there are a lot of solutes, and inside water is permeable. So as the water is permeable, even the solutes from here also come inside. So because as the solutes are also coming inside, whenever the solutes come in the PCT, in the beginning of PCT and also at the end of PCT, the osmolality is 300 for example, but because of the solutes, now it may become 1200 because the solutes are added into it. So by coming into the end part of the thin part of descending loop of Henle, the concentration increases to, osmolality increases to 1200. So ascending loop of Henle is divided into thin and thick. The tight junctions in the loop of Henle are watertight. So now we'll go to this ascending part. This ascending part is thick part, and here it's watertight. Why it's watertight? Let us understand. The loop diuretics drugs inhibit the sodium potassium chloride cotransporter because of the special. For example, this is a luminal cell, so it has a special sodium potassium 2 chlorine. So this is a cotransporter which takes the sodium potassium 2 chlorine from the lumen into the cell. So because of this, as is, all solutes are coming into the cell, and this side we also have again our sodium potassium ATPase, which tries to bring out 3 sodium out of the cell and 2 potassium into the cell. Now already this potassium is coming into the cell, and this potassium is also coming to the cell. So there is lot of potassium now inside the cell of ascending thick part of loop of Henle. So because of this, some of the potassium tries to leak out into the lumen, and even some of the potassium tries to leak out into the medullary place, interstitium. So now as the potassium is leaking into the lumen, it performs a positive barrier so that the water will not leak into the cell. So water stays only inside the cell, inside the lumen in the case of a ascending thick loop of Henle. So that's what you see. Sodium 2 chlorine go out by basal membrane, but potassium concentration in the cell increase more due to high inflow by sodium potassium pump and also by luminal side. So potassium leaks out from both luminal and basal membrane out of the cell. It brings a positive 8 millivolts lumen positivity, that is potassium advantages. So because of this potassium advantage, even the calcium and magnesium are also secreted out by paracellular transport because of electropositivity of potassium. So because of this, not secreted, they are reabsorbed. As this is positively charged, it also repels this positively charged calcium and magnesium. So because of this, they are repelled by paracellular route into the interstitium. So into the interstitium, the calcium and magnesium are also going. So medullary interstitium is now hyperosmolar because of thick ascending loop of Henle, which kick out solutes out and dump water in. So this part is known as diluting segment. Very important. Why this is called diluting segment? Because here inside you can see there are no solutes, only all water. Because of this formation of this potassium barrier, the water can't enter into the interstitium. So loop diuretics usually secreted into the PCT and enter the ascending thick loop of Henle and stop the sodium potassium 2Cl pump. So now if this pump is blocked by loop diuretics, what happens? Normally 25% sodium is reabsorbed, but due to this, the drug, it may not. So now the sodium is not reabsorbed. Either chlorine is not reabsorbed and potassium is also not reabsorbed. So instead of reabsorbed, now they are all leaked into the lumen. So now they will appear in the urine. So because of this drug, sodium, potassium, chlorine move distally and form diuresis, and also calcium, magnesium move into the urine. So whenever a person use loop diuretics, they have diuresis. Hence the name diuretic means it is forming diuresis, means lot of urine formation along with sodium, potassium, chlorine and also calcium and magnesium. So in this person, you can see as the calcium is not reabsorbed here, this person may have also some bone problems because of calcium is released into the urine. So here the examples of loop diuretics, you can take furosemide as an example. Now let us come into the DCT, distal cannulated tubule. So early DCT, it is water impermeable. Remember, even early DCT is water impermeable. They also have make the tubal part diluted, known as cortical diluting. Collection of cells is known as macula densa, present in the early part, which make a part of juxtaglomerular apparatus, which produce renin sensitive to sodium and chlorine. We already discussed it before video. So sodium chloride co-transporter is present here, and this is blocked by thiazides. 10% of sodium is reabsorbed here, but because of thiazide, even that will be not reabsorbed. So if sodium is not reabsorbed, what happens? Let us see. Actually, loop diuretic can inhibit more sodium when compared with thiazides. Why? Because you can see before in loop diuretic, 65%, normally in the ascending thick part, 65% of sodium can be reabsorbed, but because of loop diuretics, 65% of sodium is coming in urine. But here you can see the sodium here only 10% is reabsorbed. So because of blocking of thiazide, only 10% sodium will come in the urine. So loop diuretic can inhibit more sodium when compared with the thiazides, that is mild diuresis. So by using thiazides, you will get only mild diuresis, but by loop diuretic, there is lot of diuresis. So calcium is reabsorbed by parathyroid hormones by 7-pass receptor and coupled intracellularly by G protein, converted ATP into cyclic ATP, cyclic AMP, produce the protein kinase A, and finally get absorbed. So this process we already know. We discussed this in biochemistry. We still didn't make biochemistry videos, but I'll discuss them in biochemistry in detail. So calcium is mainly reabsorbed by parathyroid in the presence of parathyroid. So calcium ATPase is bring calcium out, and calcium sodium exchanger take out the calcium out. So here also I need to draw a diagram to understand. So this is the DCT cells. Here we have the cell. So actually here, because of parathyroid hormone, the calcium will come into the cell, right? So here we also have a calcium ATPase on the basolateral membrane. So what it does is it bring the calcium out, and calcium sodium exchanger take out calcium out and sodium into the cell. So it brings actually sodium into the cell and brings the calcium out of the cell. So calcium channels are present in luminal side also. So cell is poor in calcium. So even in luminal side we have calcium, so that this calcium which is coming inside the cell, now it will be going out into the blood capillary. So this is how calcium is absorbed by presence of sodium calcium transporter in our luminal side of our DCT. Even though here on the luminal side we have sodium chlorine, sodium chlorine. Yeah, here we have the sodium chlorine transporter, and beside we also have the calcium channel which takes the calcium in, but even though calcium goes in, it goes into the blood vessel again. So sodium will come into the cell, so the sodium concentration increases inside the cell. So late DCT and collecting duct. Now let us see the DCT and collecting, late DCT and collecting duct. The late DCT have intercalated cells, and collecting duct have principal cells. So they also have sodium potassium ATPases in basolateral part. So here we have sodium potassium ATPases. Sodium enters the cell because of concentration gradient by facilitated diffusion. Potassium is lost from the cell and enters the lumen of tube. So for example, here sodium potassium ATPases, which brings 3 sodium out into the cell and 2 potassium into the cell. So and this side we also have potassium channel which is leaking out, and sodium channel which is going in, right? Sodium enters the cell because of concentration gradient. Late DCT doesn't have transporters. Functions of principal cell enhanced by aldosterone. Then principal cell activates sodium potassium ATPase by mRNA translating mechanism. So now cells accumulate more potassium in and sodium out. So more potassium leaks out into the lumen. Actually, you know what happens in this case is potassium is increasing in the cell. So more potassium leaks out of the cell. More loss of potassium in urine is called cheliuresis, and Conn syndrome, where there is loss of potassium in urine. So even in Conn syndrome you can see lot of potassium in urine. So this loss of potassium in urine is seen mainly by action of aldosterone on the principal cells of collecting duct. So you can use a drug acetazolamide drug which blocks a carbonic anhydrase enzyme and hydrates in cytoplasm of PCT cells. Actually we're talking about carbonic anhydrase enzyme. You know, if it is blocked, the carbonic acid will not form and bicarbonate cannot be absorbed into the blood, right? So actually all diuretics which are proximal to late DCT bring more sodium, chlorine, water, CO2 to late DCT. Patient loses more potassium in urine by all these diuretics, so they may have hypokalemia because potassium is lost in urine. Spironolactone blocks the aldosterone receptor, so salt, water are not retained. So both sodium and potassium may be lost if the spironolactone blocks. the aldosterone receptor. And trimethrin doesn't allow sodium into the cell, so sodium potassium pumps slow down, and even the potassium which is coming out of the cell decreases. So amyloride, mild diuretics. And so less potassium lost into urine, and aquaporin 3, 4 are present in basolateral membrane. Now we are going to talk about the last collecting duct part. So actually it has aquaporin 3 and 4 present in basolateral membrane. Aquaporin 3 and 4. Aquaporin 2 is in the water channels vesicle. So in the absence of ADH, no channel for water, so dilated urine is passed. So if water comes, if water channel comes, then it can reabsorb water. But if water channel doesn't come, then diluted urine only will be passing out. But if ADH is present, then it will activate this water channel, so water can be reabsorbed, so that concentrated urine is formed. So remember, whenever there is ADH, there is concentrated urine. Why? In the name itself, you can see antidiuresis hormone. Anti means it's not allowing diluted urine, it's making the urine concentrated. The name itself says. So ADH converts the ATP into CAMP and produces the protein kinase A, which phosphorylate the water channel vesicle and opens the channel, and water enters into the cell, and interstitium drags the water from lumen. So water is absorbed and loss of urine is with less water. So next, medullary collecting duct. Some of these cells work like intercalated and principal cells. Cells reabsorb sodium, water, secrete potassium, and also secrete H+, release bicarbonate into the cell. Unique feature of collecting duct is urea reabsorption. Yeah, this is the unique feature of the last part, collecting duct, and it is taken up by loop of Henry. This process is called urea recycling. So by this we completed our section. It's a quick revision already. Who knows this chapter, it will be very easy for them to revise it. So it's just like a quick revision video. So by this we complete the tubular processing of glomerular filtrate.